The Man of Law's Tale. In modern translations of the Canterbury Tales, most translators leave this as the Man of Law rather than saying, as we would, the lawyer. So here we are. He's an educated man and he tells quite a long, bit more intellectual kind of story. It was a long time ago this happened, well before the pilgrims travelled to Canterbury. We're going travelling. Are you ready? We're hitching a lift here with some Syrian merchants. For there are merchants in Syria who travel to Rome to sell their rich fabrics and their jewels. And while they're in Rome, they learned about Constance, the emperor's daughter. Not only was she incredibly beautiful, she was also virtuous and loyal and very honourable towards her own Christian faith. And when the merchants returned to Syria and told the Sultan there about the emperor's beautiful, virtuous daughter, he knew that he had to have her for his wife. And he agreed even to renounce his Muslim religion and convert to Christianity in order to marry Constance. And so it was that Constance found herself on a ship, having bid a fond farewell to her own family. She sailed off into the unknown to Syria, where her future husband awaited her. She was greeted, as was befitting for the daughter of an emperor, with all due honour and solemnity, and a welcoming banquet was held for Constance and her attendants. But what Constance didn't know, that of course we do, because the Man of Law told us, that the Sultaness, the Sultan's widowed mother, was horrified that her son was to marry a Christian woman. So she had arranged at the welcoming banquet for all Constance's attendants to be killed. So Constance found herself surrounded by the bodies of her slain attendants, and she was carried to a ship with no rudder, which was set adrift. The Sultaness wasn't entirely heartless. She had placed in the ship food and water and clothing and treasure. Of course, it took some time for the rudderless ship to be carried by the tides and the wind, and all Constance could do was pray, and she had only her faith to sustain her as the ship was carried to the coast of Northumberland. And there she was rescued by the King's Constable. Well, this is such a long time ago that at this time England was 7 kingdoms, and Northumberland was indeed a kingdom at this time ruled by King Allah. And King Allah and most of the people of Northumberland were still true to the old gods, to Odin, to Frey, to Frigga, to Freya, to Thor. People there who practiced the Christian faith usually went to live in Wales. So Constance found herself living with the constable's wife, Hermangild, and the constable, as in a country that was strange and cold and heathen. But such was her goodness and such was her beauty that she converted Hermangild to the Christian path. Beauty often provokes jealousy, and a knight in the town was angry that he would never be able to marry Constance. So he killed Hermangild, the now Christian woman, and laid the bloody dagger next to Constance. And so it was that she found herself brought before the king, pleading her innocence. And the knight, who of course was guilty of the murder, accused her of something that she hadn't done. That such was Constance's faith, that as she stood before the king, an invisible hand knocked the knight down and caused his eyes to pop from his body. And it was then that King Allah realised that of course Constance was innocent. And he realised that it was really the knight who had stabbed Hermangild. And he became so entranced by Constance's beauty that he married her. And such was their love for each other that by the end of their honeymoon, Constance was already great with an unborn child. But Allah had to leave Northumberland and go to defend his northern border against a Scottish invasion. And he left Constance in the care of his mother. And his mother was committed to the old ways, and his mother didn't like the Christian Constance. So, when Constance gave birth to a beautiful, fair, bouncing baby boy, the steward wrote a long letter to King Allah saying, "Rejoice, you have a son and heir." But his mother intercepted the letters. Some say that she managed to get the messenger drunk, and that into his messenger bag she placed letters written in her own hand saying that the Queen had given birth to a monster and she didn't know what to do. So King Allah received a letter saying that his child was a monster. But he replied to the letters saying, "Monster or no, this is my child. Care for him, tend him. I will see him when I return." But once again, the messenger's letters were intercepted and forgeries placed in their stead. The forgeries claimed that King Allah had said, "Place my wife and my child, this monstrous, abnormal child, in the same rudderless boat and set them on the sea." And so it was that yet again Constance found herself at the mercy of the wind and the waves, praying for help. Someone must have heard her, for the ship, little by little, was taken to Rome. And it was there that Constance cared for and brought up her son, and she named her son Maurice. Allah returned from Scotland, and he learned the truth of what had happened. He learned that his mother had lied to him, had exchanged the letters, had set his beautiful wife and his son adrift, and in his anger he killed her. To make penance for the slaying of his mother, even though perhaps he could justify that, Allah went on pilgrimage to Rome, for by now, under his wife's guidance, he too had converted to the Christian faith. And so it was that Allah found himself in Rome and found a mother who looked so much like his own dear Constance, and with her was a 5-year-old son who looked a great deal like Constance, but also bore some resemblance to himself. And so it was that the husband and the wife were reunited, that Allah met his young son. So perhaps it all ends happily for Maurice. Stayed in Rome, was brought up by his grandfather, and in the fullness of time it was Maurice who became the next emperor of Rome, while Constance and Allah returned to Northumberland and there lived out their lives as king and queen of that northern land, until Allah passed into spirit and Constance returned once more to Rome. If you're familiar with Shakespeare, you'll have picked up some of the plot lines that, of course, Shakespeare uses, but of course, Prospero and Miranda are set adrift in a rudderless boat, and of course the whole thing about exchanging letters appears in Hamlet. But there are lots of people being set adrift in boats, in stories, and the implication is always that there is some kind of divine intervention, that fate, destiny, or a specific god who takes the boat to where it needs to be. Such is the wonderful world of storytelling that things always work out. So such is the Man of Law's Tale. I do hope you enjoyed that. That was kind of an abridged edition because the whole story's a bit long to tell. But if you like stories, you'd like to hear some more, please do subscribe, because stories are wonderful. And please do have a go yourself. You know, it's easier than you think. Yeah. Keep listening. Keep telling. Hope to see you again soon.